Welcome to another episode of District 6 Toastmasters on the Move. Our podcast is a joint endeavor with Michelle Seidling, our District 6 Public Relations Manager, and Ravi Rai, our past District Director. I'm Chuck Brunnette, and with me tonight is Raymond Norton of the Hutchinson Toastmasters 2 Club. Welcome, Raymond. Thanks for joining me.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. Let's start by hearing a little bit about your Toastmasters journey. When did you start? What kind of got you into Toastmasters? And then tell us a little bit about your involvement with your club.
All right. Well, I'll let you continue to prod me along if I'm not answering the question in the direction you'd like to go. But as with all journeys, they start way before anybody sees you starting the journey, right? There's always a reason you start your journey. Mm-hmm. And I know it might be difficult for some to think this of me or even suspect that this was part of my life, but as a young teenager, young adult, I had a terrible problem speaking in public. Now, some people say, "Oh, I'm scared when I speak in public," and I'm going, "That's nothing. I would have enjoyed just being scared for public speaking." But what I had is I would have physical reactions to speaking in public. And I mean, I would lose my breath. I couldn't talk. I would go into shakes. I would turn 10 shades of red. And sometimes I would even put the other people into a panic. They think like maybe this is a 911 situation. And I can't tell you why that was. You know, we could blame it on mom and dad maybe. But the thing is that's just the way it was for me. And so I was tormented by this, and I was always looking for some way to deal with it because I hated it. I mean, I have a voice, so I have things that I want to say, and I can't say them because I'm never sure when I'm going to have a meltdown in public. And so we had our community ed program had a little ad in there about speechcraft for Hutchinson. Now, I really didn't know anything about Toastmasters that much anyway, a little bit, maybe by name, but speechcraft, it was just, this idea that you could become competent in public speaking. I said, you know what, that is the thing that I need to do. And I did. And so that was in 2008. And that was quite the adventure in speechcraft. And actually, the funny part about what's going on, what went on with me, is that my very first Toastmaster meeting wasn't even a meeting at all. It was a speech contest. I heard about a speech contest after speechcraft. I went to our speech contest in Hutchinson and got a taste for what it's like. And then my next meeting, I joined up the Hutchinson 2 Toastmasters, and I've been there ever since. And I've been through all the competent communicator manuals and all of that type of thing multiple times. And I've held many officer roles. And here we are 13, 14 years later, and I'm still in Toastmasters. And my reasoning for being in Toastmasters is much different than it started. Mm-hmm. At first, it was just out of self-preservation. Right. But then it migrated to helping other people, being an encouragement and helping other people fulfill the goals that they have before them.
That's interesting. I hadn't really anticipated you mentioning about speechcraft. I've heard so many good things about speechcraft as a way to build membership, but it's interesting that you have the firsthand experience. It was speechcraft that actually drew you into Toastmasters to start.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're with Hutchinson Toastmasters. It's Hutchinson's Toastmaster 2, correct?
Yeah, Hutchinson Toastmasters 2. Yeah.
Yeah, because I believe there's another Hutchinson club, right, as well.
There's a 3M club in Hutchinson. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess they're Toastmasters 1, right? So you're Toastmasters.
Well, we actually, it's kind of funny. Is there were 2 Toastmaster clubs in Hutchinson. One went away. Then we were still there, Hutchinson Toastmasters 2. And then the 3M club came after that. And of course, that's a closed club for 3 employees.
I see. So you're the club that remained, and you just keep on with Toastmasters 2 then.
We're number 2. We're number 2.
Number 2. I love that. So this year, are you do you have a officer role in the club?
Yeah. Currently, I am the vice president of education for our local club. Yeah.
Okay. How many members are in your club?
Well, I think the accurate count probably would be about 12 or 13 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we had our even 20 last year, or I believe we closed at about 18 or 19, but we were over 20 for most of the year last year, and then we ended about 18 or 20. And it's so funny is we actually did a speechcraft, and following Northfield's lead, Northfield, I helped them with speechcraft, and they just included a Toastmaster membership right in their speechcraft, fee. And I thought that is a fantastic idea. Automatically, you have members instantly.
Right,
With
right.
some signs up for speechcraft. So that's what we did. We got a couple of members out of that, and then one of the members has stayed and has prospered in our club.
Okay, well, that's great. So I understand your club meets quite early. What, every Thursday at 7 a.m.? Do I have that correct?
7 a.m. on Thursdays, and that really aided us in maintaining the elusive gilded golden gavel for like 3 years. I mean, we had that thing for 3 years. We managed to claim it right before COVID. No one dared drive over and claim it for fear of getting COVID themselves. And so we maintained this thing. And then once COVID, the kind of the drama of it all was over, still no one came to get it because we meet at 7 a.m. on Thursdays. It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So between the early time and COVID, it seems like you've got that locked down.
We're going to need an asterisk next to our record keeping, because I'm pretty sure that's the longest anybody will ever have that gilded gavel.
Well, there you go. That's the obviously the strategy to holding on to that thing. Yeah. So I was, as you know, I first became aware of you at, I think it was the Area 34 contest, and then you went on to the Division D contest, and then I actually had a chance to meet you in person at the District 6 Spring Conference at the end of April, and your speech just blew me away. Ready, Set, Boom. It was one that I could really relate to. It really, I think, spoke to the importance of resilience in learning a musical instrument. And I was just curious if you could tell us a little bit about how did you develop that theme and how did you prepare for that speech?
Well, it's actually, I would say it's a 3 or 4 step process with me. So the first thing I do when it comes to writing a competition speech is I consider the climate. Where are we as a people, as a whole, socially and even politically? Where are we at?
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at what we're dealing with, what we're living through, and obviously COVID was a very good example of something that was upfront, dominant in everybody's life. And so as I'm thinking about it, I think about what people are looking for when they go to the movies. So when someone goes to the movies, they're looking for relief. They're looking for escape. They're looking for fantasy. They're looking to be uplifted, inspired. They aren't looking for whatever has been going on the other side of the door.
Right.
So they want something fresh. They want something new. They want to feel better about themselves when they're done watching the movie. Well, to me, that's the way it is with the speeches. And so the very first thing I do is I use a process of elimination. I go, okay, this year during this pandemic, we are not going to have a speech that majors on COVID, and we're not going to have a speech that majors on racism, because those are very serious conversations we're continually having. And when people go and see a speech, they want to escape that a little bit. They want something new, something fresh, something that lifts them up, builds them up. So that's the first thing I do. Not doing COVID, not doing racism. And then I start looking at the very next criteria is what do people need? If you're not going to talk about this, if you're not going to talk about that, what do people need? And I felt like with this last speech, people needed to laugh. People needed to be just have fun and be footloose and just enjoy the ride, so to speak, and not be burdened with too many things that are heavy. So I go, okay, so now I know I want to do a speech that incorporates a bunch of humor into it if I can. And there's nothing funnier than pain. I mean, when you think about the things we laughed at the most when we were kids, now we loved it when the coyote got whacked in the Roadrunner and Tom and Jerry and all of that. I mean, every time somebody dropped something on someone's head or whatever, they got hit with a hammer, we just laugh. Right. Well, so you take that and you understand that if you can be self-deprecating and you can just produce some of these stories that you have lived through and talk about some of the pain that you've suffered at your own hands, usually, right, then people are going to find that's pretty funny because they're living through the same type of thing. So then the next thing I do is I'm always thinking about in my speeches, how can I inspire someone? How can I impart something into them? How can I help them to have a little more joy in their life? How can I help them to see that, hey, it's a difficult situation, but there's still some bright stuff over here. Even though you're walking through that difficult situation, there's still a way to fulfill the dream that you thought was gone. There's still a way to be lifted up and not be trodden down from life. And so when I put that all together, then I come up with my own life experiences usually. And what's so funny is we just lost a precious member, and Bob Anderson, but was in our club for 35 years. Beautiful man, just loved him. But whenever I would do a speech in the club, he would, at the end, he'd come to me, put his hand on my back, and he'd say, "That was a great speech, Raymond. I don't know if any of it was true, but it was a great speech." And right. I'd say, "Bob, all my speeches are true." And what I mean by that is I always do speeches of things that I have experienced personally. And sure, I add some color to it to make it fun. I mean, you're talking about the speech I did last year. I had a line in there where I said, yeah, I send the IRS a Christmas card. I put a little baby powder in there and send it off. Well, we all know I didn't put a little baby powder in a card for the IRS because I wouldn't be here talking to you today. But right. The bottom line is the crux of the story was true. And when people can see that, they can see you walked through it and they can walk through it too. And if I can get that message across, then I feel it's a success.
Yeah, no, I agree with it. It really was a success. I think one thing that I think we're all learning is that we all have stories to tell. And, if we ever felt nervous standing in front of an audience, I think we just had to remember, hey, we have a story to tell. Yeah. And, no one knows that story better than us. And I think that's exactly what you did. So coming up on the speech season, in just a couple months, actually, it's hard to believe, the 2023 speech contest season. Obviously, every year you have an international contest, but then this year will be humorous speeches. Any hints as to what you might be thinking about at this point, or which one you might go with? Or?
Well, yeah, interestingly enough, right on the heels of Ready, Set, Boom, I had an inspiration of another speech, and I wrote it. Mm-hmm. And I've actually delivered it a couple of times in a couple of environments, a couple of special meetings. And, it's a good high caliber speech, and it could be my speech for the next competition. But I had a member challenge me, and he said, "Raymond, that's a good speech, but it doesn't surprise me that you wrote that speech. It's almost a little bit predictable about you."
Oh.
And I thought, well, is there something wrong with being predictable? I don't know. But the bottom line is they kind of challenged me a little bit. And I said, okay, this is what we'll do then. If you're not sure if that's the right speech for this next competition year, I'll just write another speech. And we'll contrast the two and pick the best one for the competition. So
okay. So you got some ideas going, and you've already started to get some evaluations on it then.
Yeah, I actually have one of the speeches is finished and fairly polished. It's ready to go.
Okay.
But I'm going back to what I originally opened with, and I'm just kind of considering, is it the right speech for today?
Okay.
And so I just kind of keep it in my arsenal, and it can't hurt to write another speech. I mean, somewhere along the line, you're going to have another speech, so why not write another one? So I am writing another one as we speak.
Well, you got to believe that I will. I'll be really interested to hear what you're. I'm sure I'll be helping out in the speech contest, and I'll be very interested to hear what your speech sounds like then. The topic I'd like to just kind of wrap up with. So many of us over the years have gotten involved in different kinds of leadership roles, either at the club level or at district level, as is the case with yourself. What would you say to new Toastmasters or folks that are kind of wondering about leadership roles?
Well, I think with Pathways, Toastmasters has done a really good job of incorporating that into Pathways. I mean, you simply cannot complete some of the paths without assuming a leadership role. And one of the very first things that we do in our club, I mean, I know the first year I was in Toastmasters, I was sergeant at arms. And the very next year, they asked me to be the president. I said, are you kidding me? The president? I had all these connotones in my mind, like, whoa, that's a pretty serious thing to lay on a guy that's just joined Toastmasters. But you know what? It's actually a pretty common thing to do to members, is to just kind of push them right into the leadership role. And you know how it is, Chuck, that with Toastmasters, you have so many resources around you, and you have past officers, and they're all there to help you with it. There's just like almost impossible to fail as a leader in Toastmasters. And so we encourage people to get started right away. But like I said, if they just get on Pathways, they are going to find themselves in a leadership role. And of course, I think the only it's maybe a new world to them if you start talking to them about a district role, a district officer. Maybe that's a little bit different, but sooner or later, people become familiar with that world. And I think that, like it is with Toastmasters in any club, you see something in them, and then you say, hey, you know what, you could do this. And I would have people do that to me when I was area director and division director. It's kind of funny because I was telling someone, oh yeah, I was area director and that went fine. And then someone wanted me to be division director. And I said, it's only for a year. And they said, yeah, I think there's a diagnosis for that whole idea that it's only for a year.
Yeah.
It's funny. But you know what? When you get in the leadership roles in Toastmasters, it's very fulfilling because you're helping so many people. Yeah. And that's the reward of being in a leadership role. I mean, sure, you're becoming competent in what you're doing, but really, to me, the reward is the people that you're helping in that role.
Yeah, I really like that thought. It just, at the end of the day, what we are doing to help others. I like that approach there. I think with a lot of these positions, they seem daunting at first, but when we step into them, we realize, wait, I can do that. I've got the skill set for this.
Absolutely.
But yeah, helping others is really where it comes out. Well, Raymond, again, it was my pleasure just to talk with you tonight. I really appreciate you taking some time. And who knows, maybe at the division conference in next April, maybe we'll have a chance to run into each other again. So,
well, that would be great. We have no idea how it's going to end, but
correct.
I want to bring up one point about speech contests.
Mm-hmm.
See, a lot of times speech contests, people will look at it. Was it a success based on did I win? And I'm telling you, you can have that in the back of your mind, I suppose. But really, when it comes to contest, you have to find other reasons it is a success for you. And to me, I consider it a success, win or lose, if I feel I wrote a better speech this time than I did last time. And to me, then it's a success. Sure, I want to win. I want to be the world champion of public speaking. But the bottom line is, you are going to fail far more than you're going to succeed if you're down that path. And you better find other reasons to be happy about what you're doing and find rewards for what you're doing. So that's the philosophy I live by.
I think that's a great philosophy for all of us to live by every day. Find the reasons that we're doing these things. So, okay. Well, once again, thank you so much, Raymond.
All right. Thank you, Chuck.